Okay, how's it going? I was asked to make a video on how to build OVMF, so I'm going to do that. I'll show Windows first and then Linux, Ubuntu, because EDKII only really has sort of MSVC or clang to an extent to build on Windows, and otherwise it assumes, Ubuntu or Linux with GCC. So I'll be showing those two things just to stick with mainly the defaults here. I'll do Windows first because it'll probably take a lot longer. I should have a basic local admin account set up now and everything's sort of reset so I can show how to, just download all the tools and build it, I guess. Hopefully it looks okay. It's the first time I'm using my laptop, so the screen is there. I can move it around, and I'm using a capture card it's attached to, which I don't know if this is gonna, I have a capture card there. So my laptop does not output native 4K, but connected to the capture card, it sort of allows it to output 4K for some reason. So it's 4K 30 into a capture card, which only captures 1080p at max, so it's downscaled. And then I'm upscaling it back with a filter or shader through MPV as well, and that's how I'm capturing the footage on my desktop in Linux. So I'm downscaling, then upscaling again if it's a little fuzzy in parts. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I left myself a little handy-dandy thing here, and sound might not be great because I'm going to be looking down at the laptop the whole time or on the sort of preview on my screen, but we'll see. Okay, so I left myself handy-dandy checklist. If I'm a little tired or cantankerous or crotchety today, it's because I tried unsuccessfully to build everything with just mingw, including the BaseTools, and that didn't really get very far. I had to scrap it and go with Visual Studio, but it turns out you don't need the full IDE for Visual Studio. You can just use the build tools, so that's what I'm going to do. Hopefully they don't break it more in the future, and we can still do that. It's still a few gigs, which is more than I'd like, but it's less than like the 20 or more that the full Visual Studio is. Not VS Code, that's okay as an IDE usually. I'll just use the command prompt for this, although I have my own setups for GCC or Clang with other, special windows. But for generic command prompt, we don't have anything on. I can show how that will work. I believe I do have Git, though. I just want to check. Yeah, I still have Git on here, but all right, just main CMD. This is going to be for Windows 11 specifically, not 10. Sorry about that. You'll just have to change a couple things for 10 if you want, and we'll do that. So, okay, I have Git installed already, but you'll have to, go to Git and download that if you want. We'll grab the EDKII source. I just want to look at the website as well, or at least the Git here. Just look at the basic overall sort of layout that they have. How you build EDKII is it comes with, all the sources. You'll have to initialize submodules as well, which is fun. But they have a setup script, and how EDK works for building is essentially setting up environment variables and paths to folders or programs to then build the base tools, which are some basic helpers or wrappers or things to use to then build the actual firmware packages in EDKII itself. So they have their own setup scripts, they have their own makefiles, but they all kind of call within each other. So we'll end up calling the setup script for bat or shell, depending on a Linux or Unix-like or Windows environment, and that'll end up setting the environment and paths to folders and programs to then build the base tools. And then once all that's set up, the base tools and the environment are set up and built, then you can actually build one of these firmware packages, such as OVMF, which is what I'll be doing on this video. Or everything will break and not work, but we'll see how. See if that works. All right, so I'm just going to put everything to be really basic in the C drive. You might need a command prompt. You might need other things set up. I do have mingw already for later, or W64 dev kit, which I like just for a sort of Unix shell instead of a command prompt. But at any rate, I also got QEMU. You might want to install that for testing, but this is just going to go over building OVMF itself. So I'm just going to clone EDKII, and we'll do that. To have a little bit less stuff downloaded by default, I don't need all the history of EDKII. I'm just going to build it locally. You can set depth of 1, and that should have a little bit less stuff over the wire, at least for the initial clone here. But it's Tiano Core EDKII, so I'm just going to clone that. Except it already exists, so never mind, because I forgot to get rid of it earlier. That's my bad. Let me do that. Okay, so you can forget you saw that. Let's just go and clone EDKII. This should be less than it normally does and take a bit less time to download because I'm only doing one depth for the history. But we do have to initialize the submodules as well. So I will go ahead and do that. So we need, say, submodule update init. This you can also give a depth of 1 for all the submodules. This may take a few minutes because it has to go through all of these things and build them. Brotli, compression, embedded TLS, OpenSSL, some other Brotli stuff, Oniguruma, whatever that is, it sounds cool. MyPy system, Janssen, libspidim, Smaka, Google. Well, that's fun. This will take a few minutes, depending on your internet speed. Okay, that wasn't too bad. So assuming you just want to use MSVC, because that's sort of the basic layout for building on Windows, that's what I'm going to use here. I'm going to grab the Visual Studio build tools. Now that I've initialized EDKII, I'm just going to search VS build tools. It's on their download page. And I'll have links to these things in the description as well. If I don't have direct links to the downloads, I'll just link the pages. So I'm just going to grab the latest one, Visual Studio 2026. Just the build tools, not the full IDE, although you can probably download it from there. And we'll just stick things into here. This will be for a little bit later. I don't want this file. The other things we'll need are going to be in an ACPI source language or ASL compiler. Intel has their own, which is the one I usually use, so I'm just going to grab that. I searched iasl. ACPI component architecture downloads from Intel. They have Windows binary tools, which is what I'm going to be using. And it just comes in a zip file. So I'll grab that as well. And the last thing I'm going to need, well, the second to last thing I'm going to need is going to be the NetWide assembler, which EDKII uses to build for assembly-related things. So I'll go to their download page. I'm just going to grab whatever the latest not release candidate is, so 301. And then I'm going to grab the Win64 folder. I'm on 64-bit Windows, and I'm just going to grab the Win64 zip, which is a portable folder with just the executable. So this would be faster scripted through like WinGit or something as well, or just invoke web request, or however you want to do it, wget or curl. I'm just doing the basic old curmudgeon way of downloading things manually into folders. So the last thing that EDKII uses to actually run its build process is Python, so unfortunately we do need a scripting language to build our firmware. We do have to go and grab old Python here, so I'm just going to grab the install manager, because if you try to get the regular one, it says it's going to be deprecated as of Python 3.15, so for some forward-looking reasons, I'm just going to grab the Python manager here, and I'll go through and install these things, so it looks like it is malware, but it's not too much. Execution aliases, you might want to change these. I should have already changed them, but you may have stuff for Python down here, like the app installer. You might want to turn those off or it'll try to open the Windows store. I don't need Git help as well, for example. And this other stuff I don't really need. WinGit's useful, but yeah, you might want to turn these two app installers off depending, because if you try to use Python normally, it'll open them up in the Windows store, which is the right regular download that this goes through as well. It's just, I don't like going through the Windows store if I can help it. I'd rather it not be installed. You can add the command to your path. That's fine. CPython's the normal runtime. This is the latest version. We'll go ahead and install that. And I don't need to view online help. It'll close. Okay. So in the command prompt, I'm not going to have everything updated in the path, so I will just reopen that. But the purpose of installing Python is so that you have at least the py launcher, and then -3 for Python 3 or other things. EDKII uses specifically py-3 to invoke Python for its build process, so you will need to ensure that that at least works, but we can just quit out of that. Okay, and we have downloads here. So you can, I don't actually remember the parameters for unzip to do it from the command line because I don't use Windows that much, but anyway, we have Python installed, that's fine. NetWide assembler, by default, EDK uses a couple paths to look for the NetWide assembler in the ASL, the ACPI source language compiler. It looks for them basically in the C drive, so I'm going to extract them there to not have to change the setup scripts. So I hate that they changed this menu too, but that's all right. So I'm just going to extract the nasm folder, just basically to see nasm, just all underscores there. That's where EDK will look by default. It'll put it in here. Actually, I'm just going to Control X that and just overwrite the folder. I already had it there before, I think is why, but that's all right. We'll delete that. Okay, and then I'm going to rename that to just NASM. And similarly for the iasl compiler, I'm going to extract that just to my root C drive. And I'm going to call it capital ASL. Those are the default paths it looks for the NetWide assembler and the Intel, at least, ASL compiler. So just make sure those are in C here, or put them somewhere else, but you'll have to mess with paths or EDK scripts later. But we'll need, Python, NetWide assembler, an ASL compiler, and Visual Studio build tools. So I need a C or C++ toolchain to be able to build EDK2, so that's what I'm going to do with this VS build tools. However, I don't want to install everything for VS Code, or for Visual Studio proper, rather. I just want to install the only few things that I need. So I did copy this from EDK's docs, so to speak, which is invoking it from the command line. So I'm invoking it with basically waiting until it's done. It won't go on immediately. But I'm invoking the build tools exe with quiet, so it's not really going to show anything to the screen, as well as no restart. It won't restart on its own, or ask to reboot or anything. Shouldn't by default. No cache is not going to save a cache there. Wait is going to hopefully wait for things to be done before going on. You can set a default path to install it. I'm going to put it under my C root under build tools. And then you can choose to add specific components if you don't want to go through the GUI and add these things. We're just going to add the core build tools, the SDK for Windows, which you'll need for things like the resource compiler or other few odds and ends that EDK2 invokes when it's building. As well as tools to build with MSVC for x86, x64, if not like ARM or other architectures. I just have ARM here as an example. And altogether, this adds up to about 3 gigs, but full Visual Studio with stuff adds up to a lot more, and I don't want to use it as previously mentioned, so we will do that. If you already have the folder that exists, you may have to delete it. If you already have the build tools installed, you may have to delete it by just sort of running this exe and then uninstalling it. I've had that come up before where this doesn't do anything because it was previously installed. But I'm just going to copy this and we'll paste it. And it pastes with the new lines, so that's entered in. And this will take a bit. This may take a few minutes or a few long moments, so I'll be back when that's done. Is it working? Well, we can find out. Yes, just very slowly. It does have to download and install everything separately, and there's a fair few number of small files, and Windows is not historically great with a lot of small files in a folder, let alone multiple folders. Okay, there we go. It's actually done. It heard me complaining, so that's all right. To not have too much hidden info, you might not know what SDK to use here. 22,000 I tried before and it worked, although on some pages Windows says it's not supported anymore. If you're on Windows 10, you'll probably need Windows 10 SDK there. But just because I want to say this before I forget, if we just search for the Windows SDK here, it may go to a downloads page. That's fine. We'll look on there. You just want to grab anything that has whatever the latest one is, basically these 5 digits here. And you can prefix that with Windows 11 SDK or Windows 10 SDK, although they have different versions. You may need 19041. I'm not sure if you can build on Windows 10 correctly with the 11 SDK. I don't know. Maybe you can. But I just grabbed whatever these 5 digits are, and that seems to be what is supported and works. So that's where that number came from. But I have tried it with 22,000 from a previous version, and it worked fine as well. But anyway, that's installed now. Under build tools there. So we have these things, SDK, VC, some other crap. So we have that, and we should have all we need to actually build EDK2. So I'm going to go back in there. We did the submodule update earlier, that's true. So, okay, so we'll run an EDK setup script. You can give it a an H or help flag to say what is there. So these are going to be how you set up your initial environment and build the base tools for EDKII. I'm going to select either 2022 or 2026, but before you do that, there's actually a bug that I don't think they fixed yet because it was out there for 4 or 5 years now, where it doesn't build with 64-bit versions of Visual Studio on Windows. It only builds with the 32-bit versions. So you have to actually, and you can invoke and set environments from these build tools that we installed for 32 or 64-bit, so that's what I'm going to end up doing. So we'll have to do that. It's under VC, Auxil. Actually, I don't remember where it's at. That's why I have a checklist. So if you waited a while, made a coffee, and everything's good, we can go on. We can set it up actually for 22 or 2026, I think. But 2022 is what I end up building under. Even though we installed 2026, it has at least backwards compat for that for EDKII. It is under auxiliary build. Okay. I almost remembered. So in here, we have VC vars. We have some build scripts in here. So if we look in there, we have these bat files which basically set up variables for Visual C that we're going to be building with. And since I installed x86-64 as well as AMD, I have ones for those as well, depending if you're wanting to, let's say, cross-compile. But I'm going to be running for 64-bit. However, EDKII base tools, for me, at least, it seems only build with 32-bit, so that's why I'm showing this. So I'm going to set up and use the 32-bit bat file there. And that'll set our environment. It's VC vars, not VS vars. That's why they didn't show anything. Instead of direct. All right. So that's just going to set up our environment. It'll set up some environment variables for that, I think, somewhere down here. Yeah. Okay, now that that's set up, we can actually run edksetup.bat, and I'll go ahead and do 2026 and see if it works. So it'll say these things aren't found, although we put our stuff in the default location, so it will find that. I do have clang installed, but I'm not going to be using it, so you may not have this pop up, or you may. We're not going to use Sigwin, so I'm not going to worry about that with GCC. And the EDK specific paths are set up here from the setup script. So that's basically where we're going to be pointing and building. The base tools will build in 32, even though we're going to use it for 64-bit building. That's okay. If we run it again, we should have less warnings. It'll just show the same things here, because those were set the first time. All right, so to actually build this stuff, I'm going to do rebuild. You can also do force rebuild in the future if you want to remake these. But if it's the first time, we can just do rebuild, and it should build them for or using Microsoft Visual C 32-bit. And this may take a bit. So again, you can, relax and pick up that book on your end table you've been meaning to go through. You now have an excuse because you're waiting for stuff to compile. But as soon as the program detects you attempting to have a relaxing time, it actually finishes, so you can go on. And it did do all these things. We should be all right. So the the base tools should be built now. In the base tools directory, it'll be under bin, I believe, and Win32, according to those paths that were set up. So basically built all these things which are helpers, such as generating the firmware volume and converting things between ELF and PE files as needed, setting up the maybe secure boot or other things, compression libraries, stuff like that. So these are helpers to build the actual firmware packages. Okay, but now that that's set up, we built the base tools, we can build EDK itself, or OVMF package specifically. And to do that, I want to build for 64-bit. So I'm actually going to set up and change from VC-vars 32 to 64 to change the environment variables and set up in my shell for 64-bit. And then we can go and actually build OVMF. And again, I'm just going to do things from the command line. So I'm going to invoke the build script here, which build exe might not be found, but build is going to be in the environment, whether it shows up for tab completion or not. We're going to build for an architecture X64 for x86-64. The type I'm going to build is release, so it builds faster and doesn't have a bunch of debug info. You may want to build for debug, depending how you want to do your setup. We'll build release. The toolchain I'm going to use is going to be Visual Studio 2022 because I get bugs and it doesn't fully build for 2026. Although I think the toolchain was just added like a month or two ago, so they probably have some stuff to work out in the future. Maybe in a year or two it'll build fine, but right now 2022 still works even with the 2026 tools installed. And the package we're going to build with the P flag is going to be OVMF. So OvmfPkg, I'm going to build for OvmfPkgX64 using the description file within this folder. So within the base EDKII folder, there's, the separate packages. We're building OVMF for the open virtual machine firmware to use in QEMU or elsewhere to test our stuff. So we'll do that. And this is the longest part for at least straight compiling. It does invoke Python to build everything. The first time building through will take longer than if you do subsequent builds. If you change stuff in the description file, for example, to build other things, it'll do that more incrementally. The first time will take a while, and there will be a ton of text on the screen, which will blow up the YouTube bitrate, I'm sure. But yeah, this may take like 2 to 5 minutes on a reasonably recent machine. It may take longer on older machines. But we'll see. It usually takes me anywhere between 2.5 to like 4 minutes on the first time to build. So you can go ahead and wait. You can pick that book up back from your end table. You can pet your cat, have a nice strong drink, whatever you're doing on these relaxing nights, hopefully. Hopefully things are going good for you. Okay, but we're about done here. Generating the firmware volumes, the memory regions that it's writing stuff to work at, and the GUID, and there we go. So right under 3.5 minutes for whatever CPU it is on this laptop. It's some recent-ish. Okay, 7940HS is what I have. This doesn't really matter. I just want to give, a baseline to work from, right? At relative idle work, it's about 2.3 gigahertz down to 2.2, 8 cores, 16 threads. Okay. And, that would have been up higher when it was building, but that's just the baseline I'm working with to build OVMF at least in 3.5 minutes. So we have that built. What can we do with that now? Well, you will find that under our build folder now from the base EDKII folder, we will have built some stuff. Whatever target or package you were building is going to be under there. So we built OVMF for the X64 machine. And there we have our tool chain that we use to build it. So our release version using VS 2022. Under there we have some other things, build options, autogen. We're interested in the firmware volume folder. And under there we'll find various things such as these OVMF, I believe flash device or flash descriptor is FD. It's not file descriptor like I've said in the past, but I think flash device is what that stands for. So we have separate sort of non-volatile variables or NVVARs there in code, or both of these together in the regular OVMF.fd file, which is what I would use for testing. So that's what I'm going to use there. And we have QEMU. I think, if I remember right, I should have copied my UEFI stuff just for testing here, but I don't remember if I did. I know, yeah, I did, okay. So UEFI here. So I don't have a thing to build this normally because I don't think I'm handling Windows paths correctly. So I need to fix that in my repos, but regardless. Yeah, I'm going to use devkit here. So this is just, I like W64 devkit because I like the Unix style shell a little bit better than command, and because I haven't changed my stuff to work for the forward slashes for Windows, so I need to make those changes. But anyway, this just has GCC and make and stuff in it as well, built in with, paths and stuff set up. So, okay. And it starts in my user folder because that's where I put it by default. And that's all right, or at least that's where it launches. So I have my own image builder that I made, which is already made, but I can make it again just to show that I have other warnings I need to fix as well. It looks like I'm not using the right length for these things, but that's okay. So, okay, just wanted to make sure that the disk image is working. So, in my stuff by default, I had a BIOS64.bin, and then this is for an absolute pointer protocol. This laptop doesn't have a touch screen, so I'm not going to use that for mouse support. I will have to add in mouse support, which I'll show in a minute. I want to make sure the OVMF works by default, so I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to copy the one that I made, which is going to be an EDKII, and if you're in the other thing, you'll have to use, forward slashes. But again, it's going to be in build there, FV. I'll grab the OVMF.fd file, and we'll put that there, so that'll work. And then I'll just make sure my hello world one can build, and it's just going to copy things into there, except it won't, because I lied. Boot X64. Let's remove that and make it again, because I think I don't have the build set up right. Oh, and I have that, yes. I'm referring to the wrong file as well. That's true. So this is just me messing with stuff that I shouldn't have to, but that I am, because I'm referring to the other thing. So it's because I didn't rename this. So I'm using OVMF as the BIOS. So the QEMU-BIOS flag is what loads this as and makes it work as a UEFI BIOS replacement and firmware implementation. I'm also using USB mouse by default, machine Q35. So you'll want to do those. I don't need to build that again, but okay. That should work. That's just my current build setup. That has nothing to do with EFI, but this just makes sure that I wanted a hello world thing that just printed. Okay, as well as my other one, which I think should also work if I remove it. I think I changed the paths for this one as well. Yeah. Okay. But that has the old thing in there. So let's remove that, because I got to remake it, because I don't have make working correctly for incremental building for the boot X64. Okay, I wanted to load this, so I just want to make sure my stuff worked with the OVMF firmware that I just built, and that I can change video modes and stuff, and that it's alright. That seems to be okay. It's not great, and it doesn't work great when I, change graphics modes and stuff. I just want to make sure that worked. The only difference here that I'm going to make is to add mouse support, because you may be interested in other input devices, and mouse support is not built in to OVMF by default. I don't have either of these, and the mouse doesn't work. So I'll just exit out of that with escape. So if you want to build in mouse support, we can do that. So I'll go back to my EDKII command prompt here. Okay, so how do you build in mouse support? Well, you're going to have to add in support to that, to the package files that you're going to build. So EDKII specifies how to build the different packages, such as OVMF, inside of files that end in DSC and FDF, so the flash device file, I think, might be what that stands for, in a sort of description or descriptor file of what to build. And it has those for different packages or architectures and stuff within the packages. So OvmfPkgX64 DSC and FDF are what I'm going to mess with. Package X64 DSC. And I'm just going to open the FDF as well. Okay. So for the description file, if I want to add mouse support, just so I remember what to add, they changed this since like a year or two ago when I first wrote this. I'm going to add in under the mode module package bus, USB, so USB devices, I'm going to add in the mouse, driver execution environment, info for that, and that'll go under, it can probably go generally anywhere, but they changed the DSC file. It used to have a USB support layout like the FDF, but now it just has components section. So all the modules that are needed by this, so I'm just going to add it under wherever the mode module package is, somewhere down here. It doesn't matter too much. I'll just add it like here before ISA support, where all these other mode module packages are. I'm just going to add it under there. So I'll add in that line. And then in the FDF file for this, I'm going to add in sort of a location to grab info, not for the absolute pointer, but for the regular one, to go along with the other one. And that one at least has the USB section that used to be there, or it's USB support. So this one I'm just going to add where the other buses are defined for the mode module package. I'm going to add that in there. This one at least defines the keyboard and the USB bus in general, as well as the controllers, but it doesn't have mouse support by default. So I'll add that in. And then I'm going to rebuild EDKII. I don't need to be in the base directory. Well, I do for build, actually, I think, for the paths to work. So I'm just going to rebuild my build step again to build the package again using that descriptor file now that I added in mouse support. And it is saved, yeah. So this should not take as long as the first time build. It shouldn't take 3.5 minutes for me. It should take ideally under 1 minute, but we'll see. All the other things are built already, typically, so it should go a lot faster. And there we go. So it built in 17 seconds. That's a good deal faster. So that should have mouse support, but again, I'm going to copy that in C and use C. If I remember my stuff, I don't. Okay, there we go. So we'll just copy that back in for the firmware file. And then I'm just going to make clean because that should remove and re-add things. Okay, graphics mode. I can go at least 1080p. We'll do that. Is this 1080? I can't tell if that's a 0. I think that's 1080. All right, let's just see if the mouse works. I don't have absolute pointer protocol and my stuff set up. I do have this, the simple pointer protocol. So here we go. So the mouse does work. The acceleration's not the best. I could probably tweak it, and it's also a little bit laggy, you know, running at larger resolution than the laptop was made for and being captured and all. But the mouse support works generally. I don't have the boundaries set correctly with the taskbar and stuff, but I just wanted to make sure that worked. So if you want to build in mouse or other device support for USB or otherwise, you can do so. There was a nice man, I think Mr. Code Chef was the name, that had forever ago at this point. Sorry to him, that's my bad. But he has like a patch file to add in some support that I wanted to go back and try to make work for mouse and keyboard and other stuff that he added. But that's still on, and I think an issue open on the, or a pull request or something, open on the Git repo. But anyway, regardless, that's how you build OVMF on Windows. So you just need to have Python, NetWide Assembler, an ASL compiler. I like Intel's, and build tools, which generally for the least amount of hassle, you can use Visual Studios. If you don't want the full IDE, you can just use the command line tools. And I have ways to install that. And I'll put this info in my, if not my full checklist, just in the description. The other way of building on another OS, I'm going to use Linux, probably use an Ubuntu like virtual machine, because EDKII only really has official build status for Visual Studio tools on Windows and in GCC on Ubuntu. So that's what I'll be doing. So I'll go to that next. All right, I'm going to build OVMF on Ubuntu now. I remembered I had a blog, quote-unquote, webpage that I haven't updated, and I thought it was longer than that. But anyway, so I'm hoping this still works. But for Ubuntu, it should be a lot less setup. I'll just install the needed tools to build with GCC and Git and UUID development headers or libraries for using libuUID, I guess, and then the Intel ASL compiler and nasm. Hopefully I can do that and make sure it works. The shell script setup is a little bit different for a Linux environment, but I'll try to set up EDKII and do that in Ubuntu. So I have QEMU open just in a full screen window. This is, I think, 2404. So it's a little bit older for Ubuntu, I think, and all I did was just open a terminal. It's a default install. I opened a terminal and made the text bigger. So that should be all that's here. And it'll probably be a little bit laggy too. I don't have, you know, performance things that I have in my QEMU script. So sudo hopefully is set up. I guess maybe they still use apt-get install, hopefully, but we'll see. So I don't know if I have to set up repos and everything. I'll cut this out and do that if I need to. But I needed what? Build essential. Okay, git, if I don't have it yet. UUID dev, iasl, and nasm. So we'll do that. Selecting those tools. 225 megs. Okay, we'll see if it ends up any faster. I did recently upgrade my internet to fiber, so hopefully downloads and uploads for YouTube and all is more stable and faster for the future. I still normally use Alpine Linux, that's what I'm recording this on, via FFmpeg scripting, so probably worse quality than I'd get out of OBS, or at least less stable, but oh well. I also noticed my camera disappeared, so, you know, my face is over here, but it's not here, so sorry about that. I'll have to redo that, I think. This is annoying. There, I want it to just be large like this. There we go. I'll just leave it like there. So, I installed all the stuff. That should be alright. Let's get EDKII again, and we'll do that. This is a terrible, terrible video that I'm not going to want to re-record anyway, but that's alright. Oh well. Again, I don't want everything in there. Just give me the last bit of history, if you want. No more, no less. So it's faster. Maybe dev 0 would work, actually, to not even grab any history. I don't really know. But we do have to update and get all the submodules again. Just to make sure all those are built. So init. And we'll do, again, depth 1. It's going to have to build all these, similar to Windows. So the initial setup's pretty similar, it just depends where you get the packages or the programs from and how you install them for your given OS. But I'll try to have like a fixed Windows setup similar to this or something in the future if I do virtual machines. This is still sort of a new setup with the webcam and scripting a little bit. So all of that should be initialized now. So to make it, again, it's similar to how I did on Windows earlier. Except for the setup part, we just need to source the shell script and then we can make the BaseTools with make. That should be alright. So we should have, I don't like this color scheme either, it's hard to read. Should have an EDK setup script. There we go, yeah, it's in green there. Okay. So on Linux, they generally want you to source these things. So I'll source the setup script and that'll make sure we have our environment set up correctly, and we get the build rules and stuff that it's going to use to build things with, set up the tool chains. Used to be you wanted to do probably GCC 5. Nowadays, they're going to deprecate the old versions, 4.8, 4.9, and 4.5, it looks like, from recent commits. But you really just need GCC, which should work for 5 and newer, as the old GCC 5 worked with. Although that may still work for a tool chain for right now, but I'm just going to use GCC as the tool chain. But okay, I'm going to make the BaseTools here, just by calling make. This will be manually building the C BaseTools, and I think the Python ones will run tests to make sure they work or do other things. If I didn't say that earlier, which I don't think I did. So we'll just build all these. It'll be for Linux. We'll have some warnings in here because nothing's ever updated and working fully. I know that. Neither is my stuff. Yep, and then it runs all the tests. We're good. Okay. So then we should all be set up. You know, in the future when you want to build these, you'll have to source that again, and then you'll be good to build. On Windows, which I didn't say earlier, sorry, every time you want to go back and build it, you will have to reset your environment variables on Windows, that VC-vars sort of thing that I called. And then you can, you know, build the things again. You don't have to rebuild the BaseTools every time. That's only one initial setup. But after those are built, then you'll just do the regular OVMF package or other building. So again, I'll try it on here if I don't press super by accident. So we'll build the 64-bit architecture x86. I'll use just the GCC toolchain. I'll build in release mode to not take as long and to not build all the debug info in. And the package I'm going to build is the OVMF package for X64 using the descriptor file. And we'll see if it works here. I didn't install Python, but that's installed by default in Ubuntu, it looks like. Or it's part of Build Essential that I installed. But similarly to Windows, we'll just have a bunch of text for a few minutes. And this is hopefully going to be faster on your setup, depending on what you're doing, because you won't be running through a virtual machine, or you'll have better pass-through or other setups. Maybe use KVM and libvirt and have it actually performant, unlike mine, because I'm not professional enough to do that beforehand. Oh, there we go. 440. It felt like longer, but that's okay. So it's not that much longer. I mean, it is vastly reduced performance than running just natively bare metal, being in the VM and not having a great setup for performance in my QEMU script to launch this, but regardless, you can build it. And it does build. Similarly, it'll be under the build folder, the package you built, the debug or release, or I guess there's like a no-opt B, whatever the B flag stands for in the binary, I guess, that you make, as well as the toolchain you used. And then again, that's going to have an FV folder in there. And that'll have the main files, including the flash descriptor, the flash device files there for OVMF. And I can try and see if my stuff just builds by default, which it probably won't. But we'll see if I can make my stuff work on here by default, maybe not. We'll see. And we'll have to make this. Ooh, I didn't do submodule update, my bad. I forgot. I do have to do that. I have to make the thing that makes the image. I think it's made by default. I just don't remember if I set that up in my scripts or not. So let's remove BIOS64, and we can add in our other thing. Can I not input a tilde? There we go, thank you. Should be there. So I'm just adding that in here, and I'm going to have to change the script again, depending on what I want to use. I don't have them. Okay, do I have VI or ed? I do have VI. That works too. I'm fine with that. It does have vSport built in, visual mode. That's good. Okay. I don't have mingw, which is the default it's looking for. I do have GCC, right? Yes, okay. So this just shows that I probably need to change my setups to work on other OSs and things, but that's okay. Oh yeah, because I was doing Clang, and I was making it work for Windows by default. That's why. Okay. Well, that's not too bad. We can just copy that, just make it GCC here. See if that works or not. It does not. Okay. Maybe I do have to use Clang. It's alright. I can get Clang. It is apparently 617 megabytes. Failed to fetch some things. Try with fix missing. That's true. I haven't updated the repo since I've used this ever. So that will take a while. Oh, technical issues. Always with the technical issues. Okay. Oh, alright. Do I actually have it work? Probably not with Clang. LOD link doesn't exist. Oh. Maybe I need LLD. I guess that would make sense. probably need LLD. You need to not do this. Then I have, okay, I had to get LLD. I forgot that they switched things up on me. That's my bad. That's my bad. So this is not, yeah, I don't have QEMU either. Do they specifically have the systems separated or not? They don't. Is it just QEMU? Oh, just system. Just system, okay. I have not used Ubuntu in forever, so it makes sense that this would this would be what I do. Is mess up. I'm assuming you know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing, but okay. So I don't have the right LD to build with GCC by default on here. I can build with clang and LLD link. I just need to get clang and LLD, and then to get QEMU, I need QEMU-system. That makes sense. Okay, but it does work with the, well, that moves the whole window, doesn't it? It does work with the default there. Inhibit, sure, that's fine. Okay. Does it work? On my other one too. Could not load, yeah, BIOS 64, because I have that here. Because I'm not referring to it, and I keep forgetting I don't have Vim. That muscle memory will die a long, very slow death. But I did change that to the OVMF file that I copied. That would be why. And it still loads that, because, yeah. Let's make the new one, thank you. Nope, you're still doing that. Let's just remove that. Oh, because I had the boot X64, that's why. So my Hello World one has a different setup in the files, that's why. That's why. See, and then it, yeah. Cannot open test, because I want to run it, yep. Oh, make clean, please. Well, it builds it pretty fast. Okay, it just builds it. It'll be the same as the other one. I just wanted to make sure that I could actually build it. I just needed to have clang, LLD, and QEMU system installed, and then, you know, changing the build process for my stuff to not be convoluted. That's something I'll write down to work on in the future. But I just want to make sure that we could build OVMF and that it did work in some capacity for testing in an emulator, which it does, on Linux and Windows. I'll just power that off, that's fine. Okay, that's all I really had planned for this video, as bad as it is. I'm sorry about that. I'll work on making things better for the future and not doing just one thing every 6 months, which is why the quality suffers as well. Maybe slightly more scripted would be good. And quality and stuff to look at, as well as improving my tools before I try to show them on video. But yeah, that's all I have for this. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching. I will go back to messing with my editor and other stuff, I think, going forward, since I do have a setup with the new webcam. It's a little bit laggy. I might look at that. Setting up timings and other things to not be as laggy, at least for nighttime recording, because low light cameras don't work as well, and that's probably why. Or I'll just record during the day and not be a goblin in a cave all day. We'll see. More stuff coming up. Back to the editor and maybe an assembler and compiler and other fun stuff after that. Possibly bootstrapped as possible. So look forward to that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.